Look at this.
Look at this!
I sense judgment. Dude, it's pouring rain, and I do not even give a rip because we are going to get some stone catfish. I get a voicemail as I'm bringing the tank out of the car, and I check it, and they're like, hey, we know you've been waiting for forever. We got the catfish, and I'm like freaking out. It's kind of wet though. Okay, so dudes, check it. You can kind of see them. I might have footage later that I can put up here. 30 bucks for 3, not the cheapest, but not rainbow expensive. So anyways, I gotta go pick up Hope. Next video. Here she comes. Alright guys, so we're back at the house now, and I thought it'd be a fun idea if we fed the fish, so we're gonna give them some bug bites. Okay, so we're just gonna start off by feeding a little bit of flake to get them started. I do not feed a lot to this aquarium because they don't need a lot. Very little stomachs in here. And you guys might notice there has been some new additions that I haven't shown on camera. And we are also gonna feed these guys over here. Don't worry about that. And oh, those aren't the fish we got. Alright guys, so by now you've probably figured out that it is no longer the same day that it was. In fact, it's more like a month later. If you look in the 20 gallon right now, you can see that the new Ember tetras are in there. If you really look closely, you can see the Asian stone catfish or anchor catfish. And as usual, there's a bunch of new plants that I've added in or moved around. I've also added some new assassin snails like this little guy at the front to try to breed them. I've once again separated the two islands so that there's kind of a sandy riverway coming through the middle. I've moved around the caves you can see here on the side, which are intended for the stone catfish. And I have thrown out a lot of water lettuce and salvinia, which is why I now have these little feeding circles, which are just made of PVC tubing, so that they don't completely overwhelm the surface. Now I know that most of you are here because of the Asian stone catfish, and while I will do a care guide on it eventually, I would like to talk about it a little bit here because I know, again, that's why a lot of you are watching this video. For the month that they were in quarantine, they were doing very well. They even took the medication very well. For the most part, they would just kind of stick themselves in the fake hornwort and stay there. Every once in a while, when I did a water change, they would kind of cruise around the bottom, which was really cool, but for the most part, they were inactive. After a month of quarantine, we put them in the aquarium. We let them temperature acclimate. I think I drip acclimated them too, which doesn't really make sense because they're both in the same water parameters, but whatever. And it was a perfect time, really the only time, for getting really good shots like this of the catfish, because once I put them in here, they disappeared. And not really in the way that I wanted them to. Originally, I wanted them to kind of do like a stingray approach to the sandy substrate. I thought they would kind of burrow in so that only their antennas are sticking up, which most people don't like probably because that means the fish is completely covered, but that's what I wanted. Didn't end up getting it. What ended up happening is the catfish, literally all 3 of them went and they hid in this cryptocoryne winded-eye. And so I can always see them, I always know where they are, but it's just not the effect that I wanted. And they don't even go into the caves that I built for them, which is kind of annoying, but at least the assassin snails are using it, hopefully for breeding. Now you'll also notice that I put in the 7 Ember tetras that we were quarantining. Originally we bought 10, but I didn't realize that the flow was too high for them to be healthy, and so 3 of them actually passed away because of the stress of the high flow. Just to show you guys once again that bad parameters, a bad environment can actually lead to illness and death in fish. They're very fragile animals. Now you'll notice that some of the Ember tetras are not really colored up. I've actually noticed that it's common for them to not color up even after a few weeks of not being in a new aquarium, so I'm not really concerned about it. Back to the anchor catfish. Care for them is super easy. Most people I talk to that have them or have had them never really were concerned about feeding them. Online guides will say like frozen or live foods, but no one ever really sees them eat. Even with banjo catfish, they'll kind of go crazy, which banjo catfish are kind of like the larger versions of these. Once they sense food, they'll go crazy searching for it. For these guys, once you put food in, they won't really notice. They kind of just go around through the mulm and the dirt, and they probably do dig up some sand, but only at night, only when you're asleep. That said, that's substantial for them. You don't really need to worry about feeding these guys a lot because they, A, probably have a slow metabolism, not swimming around that much, not using a lot of energy, and B, they are a very small fish, which means a very small stomach. Being that these guys are very inactive, you can also expect them to be very non-aggressive. They honestly, I don't know if they have any social behaviors to begin with. I did get 3 because they're really cool, and I heard that they're best kept in a group. I mean, I have noticed them all like sleep together, so that's pretty cute, but they don't really have any distinct social behaviors, especially not in terms of aggression. Something cool about them that you should probably keep in mind if you're keeping them with larger and possibly predatory fish is that they have these very large pectoral spines. These spines can be brought inwards towards the body so that they're more streamlined and small and they can squeeze through little cracks, which is really cool to see. But most of the time they have them put outwards in that iconic anchor shape to make themselves bigger so that predators don't try to swallow them, and so they can just kind of glide around on the surface of the substrate. I really like these guys. I've obviously been waiting a long time to have them in this aquarium. They were in one of the original plans for this aquarium. I really do like this fish. Just something about how they're peaceful, they fit into some small niche of the aquarium that nothing else does, and because they have that iconic rotting leaf driftwood look that I love in fish. I love how it looked on my twig catfish, on like leaf fish, on banjo catfish, on African butterfly fish, which hopefully at some point we have one of those. So anyways, I hope that you guys are satisfied with that amount of information. Care guide coming soon. Now, as far as other things in the aquarium go, honey gourami is doing awesome. The Ember tetras are doing amazingly. I haven't lost any since the quarantine incident. CPDs, the celestial pearl danios, or galaxy rasboras are doing really well. Color on them is amazing. And while they haven't done an excellent job of keeping the hair algae down, I do like how the cherry shrimp have continued to reproduce and generations have gone by. It's really cool to see it. The snails that I do have, the assassin snails, I'm hoping they start reproducing and we make a little bit of money off that. On that note, we started making money on the moss, we started making money on plants. We've started making money off this little guy. If you guys can remember the old vase aquarium, the pearl weed I'd sell in like $5 bundles, and that's been really great. This plant, I forget the name of it. It's like hydroponica japonica or something like that. I'm bad with plant names, but I really love the look of it. Tried it in the new aquarium, which I'm gonna show you guys in a second, but I really love it in here. A little bit of algae, snails are trying to take care of it, but yeah, vase is still doing well. And then of course we have this aquarium, which I'm gonna give you guys, do you guys see that? Okay, I have not added any fish to this aquarium. I have no idea why there's a shrimp in there. That's like a snowball shrimp. That's like a white shrimp. That looks like a ghost shrimp, but it's a cherry shrimp. Well anyways, that's surprise awesome. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about this tank, then video is basically over at that point. So if you guys just came for the stone catfish, that was stone catfish. I hope you enjoyed. Now we're going to talk about the 29 gallon and the plans, and the design, and the stocking and stuff like that. So first off, the design. Now the original idea was that it was going to be a tree in the center with some rocks around it and the stratum on the inside of that half circle of the rocks with like the tree there. And then we'd have like tons of plants coming up from the bottom. We'd have this big tree trunk, and we'd have some kind of plant like an anubias coming out the top. First off, as usual, the aquarium always seems bigger in my mind when I'm shopping for the stones and the driftwood and stuff like that, so it ended up feeling a little bit crammed, maybe not as much as I have in the past with like the 75 gallon, but it does feel a little bit more crammed. So what I ended up doing is, instead of a tree trunk, I kind of had this, dual tree structure, which kind of happens in nature sometimes, which leads up to these currently brightly colored pieces of driftwood, which are kind of like the branches, like a tree. It's very dark, and then the branches get very light, kind of green. Same idea, but with a lighter brown. And then eventually, when they start growing well, it's going to lead into the green and the leaves of the Sprite, which you can see here, which is actually doing really well. I love when one plant just pops off, because I know I can just use that in that tank for anywhere in the aquarium. And the idea is that the anubias and the java fern were all supposed to take over a little bit, kind of flesh it out and add some diversity up in the boughs of this tree, but they didn't really take off. I was also trying to make it so that this back section, which is guarded by this rainbow rock, really cool rock by the way, I thought this was only like a PetSmart decoration, but it's actually a real thing. On the inside of this rainbow rock, it was supposed to be all stratum. What I ended up doing was using like 20 pounds of stratum, and then I capped it with sand, which kind of made me lose any contrast. You know, it was just sand outside, sand inside. So I filled it with stones in there, and that's kind of helped a little bit. And the idea was that I'd have stem plants, which I've sort of never had success with, filling in the background, and I'd just be able to let them grow, trim, replant, grow, trim, replant over and over and over again, and make it as dense as I wanted. I kind of thought that the stratum was going to be a little bit magic here and how it grew the stem plants, but it's been a couple weeks and the stem plants still don't look good at all. They aren't dead, but even though I have the stratum and I have been dosing liquid fertilizers and I have been using root tabs, you still have plants like this, which I guess you can see, where it's just kind of dead leaves all the way up until the top, and then it's kind of bright green, but you know, not really the density I was looking for. I'm not going to do a CO2. If I do still want that look, I'm just going to complete it with the jungle val. I might buy some more jungle val, or I'll just let it propagate. And then I also have some swords in the back, which we'll use to fill in instead. Where are you going, buddy? It's a really nice breed of shrimp. Really cool. Oh, he disappeared. Oh, there he is. So you can also see that the driftwood is kind of falling down here. It's supposed to be built up. It's supposed to kind of get wider as it goes up, but I didn't like silicone it or anything, so it's just kind of like crumpled back down. I don't know. I'm waiting for the Anubias or job fern or whatever to kind of hold it in with their roots, but it's going to take some time. You may also see that I have these little caves on either side. Actually, you can't really see it, but I do have caves on either side. That's basically a cichlid stone covered in sand so that you can see from the side, which is really cool. I'll show you guys later, maybe in a different video. It doesn't really matter right now, there's nothing in there. And the idea is that I'll have loaches or something like that, and they'll just be able to pop down in there, and I'll be able to see them from the side, and they'll also feel safer. In terms of equipment, AquaClear, right up there. It's kind of loud, but I'm tolerating it because there's a lot of filtering power that it has. I'm also going to add a power head on the side because the idea, as you saw in that little feeding clip, is I'm going to have rainbow fish in here and they like a little bit of current. So I'm going to have some flow that kind of circulates in front of the glass this way and then goes behind the tree and then back, circulates this way. Just kind of in a circle like that. As far as stocking goes, rainbow fish, obviously, shrimp apparently, and I'm going to be getting rid of all these ram's horn snails. I'm just going to pop them in the quarantine tank to keep it cycled. I went with all sand obviously, so I want some really good sand sifters. I wanted to do loaches again, but I don't know if this is the right fit for them. There's not a lot of cover as it turns out, and so I might do something that's a bit more of an active out and about sand sifter like Corridoras. I'm going to have some kind of sand sifting cichlid. Right now I'm thinking Bolivian rams. To fill in the boughs of the trees, kind of like the little birds nesting up there, I'm going to have lamp-eye killifish, the blue eyes and the yellow tails to match the rainbow fish. Everything kind of color coordinates in this, you'll notice. And my most recent idea since going to Critter Jungle is having a bunch of gobies in here. The idea is that they'll fill into the places that the loaches used to when they were in Hope's tank. That being that they'll kind of hide on the driftwood, they'll kind of nestle their way in there and they'll kind of poke out and they'll chase each other through it and stuff like that. I think it'd be a really good look. The neon blue Stiphodons have a really nice blue neon color to them too, so that would also match the rainbow fish. So currently that's the plan. It's a blank slate, guys, so if you have ideas, I want to hear them too. I am planning on making this aquarium into like a step-by-step build, but it's going to be over a few months, so you're not going to see it for probably like 6 months to a year, but this is kind of a sneak peek behind the step-by-step build. Also, since the 20 gallon's done now, I'm thinking let it run, let it be done, let it be stable for around a year, and then I'm thinking we put like a really tall gecko terrarium in there. I've been looking at the morning geckos, so nice, the day geckos, so nice, even crested and gargoyle geckos, so I'm thinking soon enough, might have to put one of those over there. Anyways guys, that's it for this update. I hope you liked the video. If you did like it, make sure you leave a like. If you want to see more like this, subscribe, and I will see you guys on a Sunday.